The morning after Mother's Day, Grace woke before the sun. The house was still, the kind of quiet that presses on the ears like cotton. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling crack that had looked like a lightning bolt since 1987, and for the first time in decades, she did not think of Danielle's breakfast, preferences, or the grandkids' school schedules. She thought only of the attic. She had not climbed those pull-down stairs in 15 years. Her niece protested, but anger is an excellent anesthetic. The attic smelled of cedar and dust and the particular sweetness of old paper. She flicked on the bare bulb. Boxes, holiday decorations, Danielle's childhood trophies, everything labeled in Grace's neat school teacher cursive. At the far end, behind the artificial Christmas tree, stood a flat leather portfolio the size of a placemat. She had forgotten it was up here. Or perhaps she had buried it on purpose. Grace carried the portfolio downstairs, set it on the kitchen table, and made coffee she did not drink. The zipper side open. Inside, 24 canvases, each wrapped in acid-free tissue. She unwrapped the top one with the reverence of a priest lifting a chalice. A girl on a swing, midair, hair streaming like a comet. The colors were reckless cerulean sky bleeding into vermilion dress. The kind of palette a young artist uses before life teaches caution. At the bottom right, a signature in India ink, G. Whitmore, 73. She had been 23 when she painted that. Art school sophomore, full scholarship. Professors who spoke of her in the same breath as Mary Cassatt. Then Danielle's father vanished. The scholarship money ran out, and the canvases were rolled and forgotten. Grace had told herself practicality was a virtue. She had believed it. Now at 74, she believed something else. She spent the day in the living room with the portfolio open like a deck of tarot cards. Each painting was a memory she had starved. The mill at desk, smokestacks exhaling lavender. A self-portrait at 19, eyes already wary. The last piece was unfinished. A woman in a green dress, her green dress standing at a window. One hand pressed to the glass as if testing whether the world outside was real. The face was blank. Grace had never finished it because she had stopped knowing who the woman was. By nightfall, she had photographed every canvas with her phone. The image is shaky but serviceable. She created an Instagram account under the name Whitmore Art, uploaded the girl on the swing, and wrote a caption she deleted 3 times before settling on. Rediscovered after 50 years in exile. Tell me if she still flies. She posted it, closed the phone, and went to bed expecting nothing. At 3:17 a.m. the phone buzzed itself off the nightstand. She fumbled for it. At Gallery Blue liked your post. At Gallery Blue commented, "This is extraordinary. DM us." She stared until the screen dimmed. Then she opened the message and typed with 2 thumbs. "Happy to discuss. I have 23 more." The next week was a fever. Gallery Blue was a small but ferocious space in Soho, run by a woman named Paloma Vega who spoke in rapid-fire Spanish when excited. Paloma fast the time from the gallery at midnight Grace's time, eyes wide at the digital slideshow. "Grace, these are not attic paintings. These are a retrospective waiting to happen. The emotion, it's like you bottled the 70s and uncorked it now. We open in 6 weeks. Can you be here?" Grace looked around her modest living room, the sagging sofa, the TV with a cracked remote, the silence that had once felt safe. "I'll be there," she said. She did not tell Danielle. Packing was simple. 1 suitcase, the portfolio, the green dress dry cleaned and folded in tissue. She left the house key with Mrs. Johnson, who pressed a Tupperware of chicken soup into her hands and said, "About time you remembered you're still breathing, Gracie." The flight to New York was her first in 30 years. She wore the green dress and felt every eye on the plane catalog. Her as harmless elderly. Let them. She had a secret humming under her skin like bees. Paloma met her at JFK in a mustard yellow coat, arms flung wide. "You are taller than your paintings," she declared, and whisked Grace into a black SUV that smelled of leather and ambition. The gallery was a white box on Wooster Street. Paloma had already hung 12 pieces. The rest leaned against walls like soldiers awaiting orders. Grace walked the perimeter and felt the floor tilt. Her younger self stared back from every canvas fierce, frightened, electric. "We'll call the show exhumation," Paloma said. "Because you dug these up, yes, but also because the art world buried you too soon." Grace touched the unfinished woman at the window. "I never gave her a face." "Then give her one now," Paloma said. "We have 6 weeks. Paint." They cleared a corner of the back room, set up an easel. And suddenly Grace was 23 again. Wrists stained with ultramarine. Heart hammering against the canvas. She worked 12-hour days. Paloma brought her Cuban sandwiches and stories of artists who bloomed late Grand Mimosas. Louise Bourgeois. Grace listened and painted and did not answer her phone. Danielle left voicemails that grew shrill. "Mom, why is the $500 not in our account?" "Mom, the kids miss you. Call us." "Mom, this is ridiculous. Pick up." Grace saved them all evidence. The new painting took shape, the same woman in the green dress. But now the window was open, city lights spilling in like champagne. The face holder, lined unmistakably Grace's own, was turned 3/4, eyes fixed on something outside the frame. The expression was unreadable, grief or triumph, maybe both. She titled it Departure. Opening night was a Thursday in July. The air conditioning fodder. Losing battle against bodies and ego. Critics in linen suits, collectors with champagne flutes. A string quartet sawing Vivaldi into submission. Grace wore a simple black sheath. Paloma insisted made her look like a blade. She stood beside. Departure, while strangers dissected her soul in 6-word reviews. Raw, argent, late-blooming genius. A red dot appeared beneath. The girl on the swing sold for $15,000. Then another, and another. By 10 o'clock, every canvas had a dot except Departure. Paloma whispered, "Museum trustee wants it for $50. Let it go." Grace shook her head. "That one stays with me." At 10:37, the door opened and the room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Danielle stood in the entrance wearing the stunned expression of someone who has walked into the wrong life. Michael hovered behind her, clutching a gift bag that looked ridiculous among the champagne flutes. The grandkids were not with them. Danielle's mouth opened, closed. She stared at the walls at her 3-year-old self on a swing, rendered an impossible color, then at Grace in the black dress, hair swept up, cheekbones sharp as truth. "Mom," the word cracked in the middle. Grace felt every eye swivel. She lifted her chin. "Danielle, you're late." The show started at 7. Danielle's gaze darted to the price list. Her lips moved, calculating. These are yours? Were mine. Most are sold now." Grace sipped her water, calm as a frozen lake. The girl on the swing went to a collector in Tokyo. She fly after all. Michael found his voice. "We've been worried sick. You disappeared. And the money." Paloma materialized like a genie in patent leather. "Excuse me, this is a private event. Invitation only." Danielle flushed. "She's my mother." "Exhibiting artist," Paloma corrected. "And unless you purchased a ticket to the fundraiser, you'll need to leave." Grace set her glass on a passing tray. "It's all right, Paloma. 5 minutes." She led them to the back room, past crates and extension cords, to the easel where Departure waited under a clip light. Danielle's breath hitched. "That's you. Older, yes. Wiser, certainly." Grace folded her arms. "You taught me the difference." Michael tried bluster. "Look, Grace, we can talk about the money." "No," the word cut clean. "We're done talking about money. You received $67,000 over 5 years. I have receipts. I also have the voicemail where you called my 102-degree fever a cold. Shall we play it for the critics?" Danielle's eyes filled. "It was a joke, Mom. The card." "We were stressed." "Stress doesn't buy computers, Danielle, or kitchen remodels, or the down payment on the house you're standing." Grace gestured at the gallery. This is what I do when I'm not bailing you out. Michael's face hardened. So what? You're rich now. You owe us. Grace laughed to sound like ice cracking. I was never poor. I was generous. There's a difference. She reached into her clutch and pulled out an envelope. Inside, a single photograph of the Mother's Day card. The cruel poem in Danielle's handwriting. On the back, Grace had written in red ink, property of the artist. Do not touch. I'm including this in the catalog for the touring show, she said. Chapter titled Heaviest Burden, Paloma thinks it adds narrative weight. Danielle went white. You can't. I can, and I will. Grace tucked the envelope away. Unless you leave now and never contact me again except through lawyers. Michael took a step forward. Security appeared to quiet men in black suits. Paloma's doing. He stopped. Danielle was crying. The kids are welcome when they're 18. They can email. Grace softened a fraction. I'll keep the trust I set up. But you're done. She turned her back. The security men escorted them out. Through the doorway she heard Danielle sob. Mom, please. And then the door closed. The room exhaled. A critic approached, eyes bright. Was that performance art? Grace smiled, small and sharp. Autobiography. The show sold out. Departure stayed with her. But the rest financed a studio. Apartment in Chelsea. With north light and a freight elevator. Big enough for canvases. She painted every day. The new works were darker, figures dissolving into city light, faces half erased. Critics called it her anger period. She called it clarity. In September, Vogue ran a profile. Grace Whitmore, the sexuagenarian. Sensation who painted. Her way out of ingratitude. The photographer caught her in the green dress, standing before departure. One hand on the frame like a mother touching a child's forehead. The headline, she left the attic and took flight. Danielle tried once more, 6 months later. A handwritten letter forwarded by the gallery. 12 pages of apologies, excuses, promises. Grace read it in Paloma's office, then fed it into the shredder. Fuel, she said. Paloma raised an eyebrow. For the canvases. For the fire I should have started years ago. The European tour began in Paris. Grace flew first class. The green dress and garment bag. Departure created like royalty. At the vernissage in the Marais, a young curator asked if the unfinished woman had ever found what she was looking for. Outside the window, Grace considered. She became the view. Back in the States, the grandkids now 9 and 7 sent emails from school accounts. Hesitant, spelling challenged, full of questions about paint and airplanes and whether grandma was famous. Grace answered everyone, attached photos of the Eiffel Tower at dusk, told them stories of pigments ground from lapis lazuli. She did not mention their parents. On her 75th birthday, she opened a second show, Reclamation. 20 new paintings, larger, fiercer. The centerpiece was a triptych, left panel, the attic portfolio zipped shut. Center, the Mother's Day card reproduced life-size, words dripping like blood. Right, Grace at the easel, back to the viewer, window flung wide to a sky on fire. Sold to the Whitney for a sum that made Paloma swear in 3 languages. That night, alone in the Chelsea apartment, Grace poured a finger of bourbon her first in. Decades and toasted the blank canvas on the easel. To the woman I buried, she said, may she stay dead. She painted until dawn. The new piece had no figures, only color violent, joyous, impossible. She titled it Unburdened. Years accumulated like brushstrokes. At 80, Grace had retrospectives in London, Tokyo, Sao Paulo. She taught master classes to students young enough to be great-grandchildren. Told them talent was a muscle, not a gift. Neglect it and it atrophies. Feed it and it carries you across oceans. The grandkids visited every summer, flew in on tickets Grace bought. They called her G-Dub, learned to stretch canvas. 8 croissants in the Marais studio she kept for overflow work. Danielle and Michael aged in photographs. Grace refused to open Christmas cards. Returned unopened, lawyers' letters shredded unread. At 82, Grace won the National Medal of Arts. The ceremony was in Washington. The president shook her hand, said her story inspired him. She wore the green dress, now a relic, hemmed shorter to accommodate orthopedic shoes. Cameras flashed. She smiled the small, sharp smile that had become her trademark. Afterward, a reporter asked what advice she had for women who felt invisible after 70. Grace didn't hesitate. Stop asking permission to take up space. The attic is yours. The canvas is yours. The sky, she gestured at the cloudless Capitol dome, is indifferent. Paint anyway. She flew home commercial economy because the seat beside her was empty and she liked the legroom. In the airport newsstand, she saw a tabloid. Danielle's desperate plea to estranged mom. I was wrong. Grainy photo. Danielle older, thinner, eyes red. Grace put it back without buying. At 85, her hands began to shake. Arthritis, the doctor said. She switched to broader brushes, looser strokes. The work grew monumental. A gallery in Los Angeles gave her an abandoned warehouse. She painted murals visible from the freeway, women emerging from shadows. Faces finally, fiercely complete. The last piece she finished was small, 12 by 12 inches, a return to the beginning. A girl on a swing. But now the girl was gray-haired, laughing, feet kicking stars into the stratosphere. Grace signed it with a trembling hand, dated it, and hung it above her bed. She died in her sleep at 91. The nurse found her with a smile. Paint still under her fingernails, cadmium red, the color of defiance. The will was simple. The Chelsea apartment to the grandkids. The Paris studio to Paloma, the bulk of the estate now. Valued at 8 figures too. A foundation for late blooming. Women artists over 60. One clause specified that Danielle and Michael received a single item. The original Mother's Day card, framed, with a brass plaque. Let this be a reminder. Some burdens are self-inflicted. Some wings are earned. The funeral was small, held in the Soho Gallery. The grandkids, now 24 and 22, read eulogies. Paloma spoke of Grace's laugh, how it started in the belly and ended in the eyes. Critics came, collectors, students, who had never met her but knew her. Brushstrokes by heart. Afterward, they opened the doors to the public. Every wall held a Grace, the girl on the swing, the woman at the window, the triptych of fire and flight, and in the back room, under a single spotlight, the final small canvas, the old woman swinging among stars. A little girl in braids tugged her mother's sleeve. Mommy, is she flying? The mother, voice thick, answered. She never stopped. Outside, spring rain washed the city clean. Inside, the paintings glowed, proof that exile ends the moment you pick up the brush.